What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. FPL Harry here. Today we're going to have a look at a few of those players who have been so close to getting into my official draft but haven't quite made it, but I'm really considering for game week 1. So up on screen now, we have the draft that I posted on Friday. If you haven't checked out my latest draft video, go and click the link that is at the top of the screen now. But we won't be including any of these guys in the video. If you want to know why I included them, again, go and check that video out. But what we're going to do today is go through some of the players that are very, very close to getting in this team that I haven't quite managed to squeeze in, but are very much on my radar and on my short list of players to be considered for game week 1. So this was the draft that I posted. It was a 5-3-2 formation. Again, big at the back that we've got there. 3 midfielders plus that cheap option in Neto. 2 cheap 4.5 million midfielders with Haaland and Jesus leading the line. So again, these guys are not going to be included, but let's get in. We'll start with goalkeepers, move all the way to forward with players that I am considering for game week 1. First up, we're going to start with goalkeepers. The number one we've got here is Mendy. So I started with Ramsdale at the same price. Again, part of the reason I did this was because I've already got Chilwell and James, and having a triple up on Chelsea defence felt like a bit of a push. Although I like them defensively, it seemed a bit much to go with for the start of the season. I really like Mendy as a goalkeeper. 5 million feels like an absolute bargain. Chelsea have a really nice opening run of fixtures, and if Chelsea can continue their sort of summer signings, Koulibaly coming in now to help shore up that defence, to help improve that clean sheet odds, because when Christensen and Rudiger went, there was a bit of doubt about how many clean sheets they would be capable of keeping. If they do keep improving their defensive stability, then 5 million for Mendy could be an absolute bargain. Next up, we have 5.5 million for Ederson. One of the big things for me in Ederson is that he's the cheapest way to go and get a Manchester City defender. You could go and buy 6 million in Diaz and Laporte, who are the ones sort of I'm considering at the moment, and then you could go up for 7 for Cancelo. However, the moving all goalkeepers from 6 million down to 5.5, I think he's really got to be in our consideration and in our thoughts. They were top for clean sheets last year with 20 clean sheets to their names. Again, the number one defensive side you've got to think going into this season as well. If they sign Cucurella, he could be another one to consider in the defence. But 5.5 million, given the amount of clean sheets that they're likely to keep, could be a great price for him. Again, we're not likely to triple up on Manchester City, so taking up a Manchester City spot with a goalkeeper is not that big a deal. It isn't like taking Alisson, for example, who does sort of clash with the rest of those Liverpool players. A real option that I like, and if I don't want to go with sort of 6-7 million their defence, is definitely one, because I'll absolutely want to cover that Manchester City defence in my game week 1 team. Now, next up, we have David Raya. Again, did really well last year, but did pick up a bit of an injury, which is why he's not seen a price increase up from 4.5 million that he was last year. Brentford were really solid last year, and he got a lot of points when he wasn't injured. Save points, bonus points, because they don't necessarily score a lot of goals, particularly without Eriksen in the team. I don't expect him to be that free-flowing going forward. Tony and Buemo might get some goals, but I do think they'll be relying on some clean sheets and strong defensive performances if they do want to get returns this season. Again, that makes Raya a really good option, because it means he's got a good chance of getting bonus points given what he did last year when he wasn't injured. 4.5 million, given they have a really nice start to the season as well in terms of fixtures, could be a great option. And if I need to downgrade from a 5 million to a 4.5 million goalkeeper, he could definitely be the one that I go with. And finally, we've got Jordan Pickford coming in at 4.5 million as well. Again, a downgrade from last season. If he continues to perform and Everton perform like they did at the end of last season, he's a no-go. However, we know what Everton are capable of doing. They are capable of being a top 10 team in the Premier League. They are capable of being solid defensively and good going forward. Pickford makes a lot of saves, and he's good for bonus points as well. If we see a start of the season where Everton are likely to return to maybe some of that form that we saw before and over the past couple of years in the Premier League, then Pickford at 4.5 million again could be an absolute bargain. However, I need to wait and see what they do in pre-season and maybe how they start the season as well. But here are 4 goalkeepers that I'm definitely considering for my game week 1 team if I do decide to go without Ramsdale. Into the defenders, number one we've got is Laporte. Again, Diaz versus Laporte is a really big thing for me. Laporte probably has slightly better goal threat than Diaz, but I think he has a slightly bigger rotation threat coming from John Stones, so it is a bit of 50-50 call. However, I do think that Diaz and Laporte are going to be that number one Manchester City pairing, so I do have to basically make the decision on which Manchester City defensive option are we going to go with. I've spoken about Ederson already. I've got Diaz in my current draft. Laporte is here, and I also don't have Cancelo. It's a pretty 50 50-50 or a 25% chance on me going with any of these guys. Laporte is probably the sort of cheaper big goal threat option. Ederson is that cheap way into that Manchester City defence, and then Cancelo maybe a bit more explosive. Chances are, I've got Diaz at the moment, chances are that is going to change, and Laporte is definitely one that I need to consider given that he scored more goals than any other Manchester City defender last year. Next up on the list, we have Tomiyasu. Again, at the moment, I've got Ramsdale in my team. I definitely want to cover that Arsenal defence because they have an incredible run of opening fixtures. We've seen on every fixture ticket that we look at, one of the best sort of opening 6-8 runs of fixtures is Arsenal. Again, the likes of Saka, the likes of Jesus are very highly owned, and looking defensively, Tomiyasu is a player that people are definitely considering, along with the likes of Ramsdale and Ben White as well. He's probably my favourite 4.5 million defender, but there are a lot of 5 million defenders I like as well. The first one up is Trippier, coming in at 5 million again. When he signed for Newcastle, he was very capable of getting good goals from sort of set pieces and open play, and those assists that he's capable of taking corners and set pieces as well. 5 million feels like a great price. They do have a really nice opening run of fixtures, and they actually rotate really well with Fulham. Now, that probably doesn't sound like that appealing to you, but a lot of us will be starting with Pereira on our benches. Now, sort of 5 out of the first 7 games, you can start Trippier absolutely fine, but he does have a couple of difficult opening fixtures that you could rotate Pereira in. Again, if Newcastle are going to look to strengthen even further on where they ended last season, Trippier at 5 million could be one that I really want to start the season with at a great price as well. Next up is Matty Cash, and Luca Dean coming in at the same price as well could be really good options given that Aston Villa have a great first 3 fixtures. The only thing putting me off going with these Villa guys is we don't quite know exactly how they're going to line up in terms of their centre-backs. A few new defensive midfielders coming in as well. On top of this, they only have a nice opening 3 games. After that, I will be needing to sell them from my team because their fixtures get a lot more difficult. I don't really like booking in transfers early on, and as much as I like these Aston Villa guys, I don't think I really want to start with them and book a transfer in. I'd potentially like to go with Trippier instead. Now, the final defender we've got on here is Zinchenko. Now, at Manchester City, he's an absolute no-go. Of course, his minutes will be very minimal. However, it looks like he could be moving to Arsenal. And if that does happen, he could be playing midfield along with either Partey or Xhaka. And if that is the case, again, 5 million playing in that Arsenal defence, but actually playing in midfield and having a good goal threat, because that's where he plays for Ukraine, could be an absolute bargain. It would be a bit of a toss-up between a 4.5 million Tomiyasu and a 5 million Zinchenko. Tomiyasu would be slightly more nailed because we're not necessarily sure exactly what Zinchenko is going to play and where he's going to fit into that Arsenal lineup. But again, if he's going to go and be in that midfield, is going to start and have that attacking threat that we know he has on international duty, he's got to be considered as one of the best bargain picks that we could have this season. Next up, we have 5 midfielders, and the top one was a player that was very spoken about when the official prices start to leak, and that is Saka. However, he's not in my draft at the moment because I do have Luis Diaz coming in as my 8 million midfielder, and then we also have Jesus up front. However, I know a lot of you are still considering Saka, and I absolutely think he should be considered. Luis Diaz, again at a similar price, might be rotated in and out of that Liverpool team, again with the likes of Jota and Nunes Darwin, again coming into that Liverpool team. Saka could be on penalties, but even from open play, we know what he's capable of doing. They have an absolutely fantastic start to the season, the best opening run of fixtures, as we've spoken about, with the likes of Tomiyasu and Zinchenko if he goes as well. Doubling up, tripling up on Arsenal is not necessarily a bad thing. Jesus has been lighting up pre-season, so it is likely that he's the most highly owned Arsenal asset, but doubling up or even going Saka instead could be a big differential, and doubling up with him is really what I'm considering for my team. Next up is Son. The big elephant in the room in my teams is not having any Tottenham assets in my attack, so Son and Kane are definitely 2 players that I'm considering going with. 12 million is a lot more, and I think last year you could sell Salah and downgrade, or you could sell Kevin De Bruyne and downgrade to Son at the likes of 10 million and really save sort of 2+ million on these players. However, now that he's the same price as De Bruyne and only 1 million less than Salah, it does give us a bit more of a difficult decision to make looking at him at 12 million. However, they've started pre-season so well. They do have a really nice opening game against Southampton. Again, Chelsea in game week 2 is a little bit more difficult, but I do think we've got to consider, and I do think finding a 3-million draft, so having Salah, Haaland and Son, has to be a way that I need to look at with the next couple of drafts I put together, because not having a Spurs asset could absolutely damage my season before it's even begun. Next up, making a slightly cheap option is Harvey Barnes. Now, I've gone with Barnes over Maddison just because it's $1 million saving. I like them both and they were both good at the end of last season. But at the start of the season, you do need to find million and 0.5s to save in and around your team, and going Barnes over Maddison is probably a good way that you could do that. Again, I really like him as an option. Let's have an okay run of fixtures to start the season. He's been really good in pre-season as well. It does look like Maddison, Vardy, Barnes, and then a potential right winger is what they're going to start the season with. And Barnes, if he's sort of firing at the way we know he's capable of doing and the way we've picked him over past seasons as well, he could be an absolute bargain at 7 million. Next up down the list, again, a player that I think could be an absolute gem this season and massively underpriced is Marcus Rashford. Along with his teammate Sancho, again, got massive price decreases down this year, and it's Rashford that I'm really focusing on. He's had a good preseason so far, scoring some goals, looking more back to himself. Again, playing in that sort of front line. He is playing with Martial at the moment, who we know in previous seasons he's linked up very well with. I don't think Martial is going to start the season. I think it will be Ronaldo, who is now likely to stay at Manchester United. But at 6.5, if Rashford is going to start the season from Manchester United, if they have Brighton and Brentford in their first two fixtures, could be an absolute bargain. We're buying sort of 5.5 netto, and just for 1 million more, you can have Marcus Rashford. Now, if he returns to the prime Rashford that we know, could be a great price at 6.5. And the final one we've got is a very cheap option in Fornals coming in at 5.5 million to rival the likes of Visa at Brentford and rival the likes of Neto that we've already spoken about. He's very consistent in terms of his FPL returns. Now, he's not really explosive, but what are you going to get from a 5.5 million midfielder? It's just that Manchester City fixture in game week 1 that's putting people off, but they do go on to play the likes of Nottingham Forest in game week 2 and a few other easy fixtures after that as well. So if you can find a way, and I'm looking at it in my team as well, to bench these players, to bench Fornals in game week 1, to bring him into my team for sort of game week 2, 3, 4 at 5.5 million, rotating with Neto, rotating with Tomiyasu in my defence, for example, could be a very good option and is that final midfielder that I'm really considering and trying to squeeze into my team. Finally, moving on to forwards, as we spoke about with Son, Harry Kane is in here again. Again, Son versus Kane is a very difficult debate. Very similar prices. Kane slightly cheaper, but gets that slightly less point for a goal, doesn't get that clean sheet point, but is likely to be on penalties as well. Don't pay any attention to Son taking a penalty in pre-season. It was only because it was taken in his home country and in front of his own fans. Kane will be back on penalties, and at 11.5, I find it very difficult to ignore. I see a lot of you considering going with Harry Kane in game week 1 against Southampton whilst Haaland is away at West Ham, and then moving Kane to Haaland while Haaland plays Bournemouth in game week 2, whereas Kane goes away to Chelsea. This is a very reasonable strategy. I hate booking in transfers, but it might have to be something I consider because going without Tottenham in game week 1 is something I see in every video I post is an absolute no-go and see all over Twitter. So I am trying to find a way to get either Son or Kane into my game week 1 team, and not having Haaland and moving into him in game week 2 could definitely be the way that I go. Next up, we have Kai Havertz at Chelsea. Again, likely potentially rivaling the likes of Jota at Liverpool at 9 million and rivaling Jesus at Arsenal at 8 million as well. He could be leading that Chelsea attack, who have a great opening run of fixtures, including Leeds and Everton in their first 3. They do play Tottenham, but if he's leading the line alongside Mason Mount and Raheem Sterling, we knew what he could do at certain points last season. He wasn't as sort of explosive as maybe we hoped from him last year, but now he's in it as a forward as well. I think he could be a really nice option. Do I really think I'm going to go without Jesus for game week 1? No, but he could be one that I go alongside with, or he could be a really nice differential for anyone looking for that sort of option. And you're going Saka in midfield and you don't want Saka and Jesus. I think Havertz could be a really nice option, especially if Chelsea don't sign another striker. Next up down the list, we have Callum Wilson. Again, we spoke about Trippier earlier, about how good Newcastle were at the end of last season, and Callum Wilson was definitely a player who can profit from that. The only big thing for me is if he gets injuries at the beginning of the season, which we know he does quite a lot. If he stays fit, he will make a mockery of that 7.5 million price tag. Could easily score 15 goals this season if he does stay fit. Of course, Newcastle having no Europe and just focusing completely on the league, again, will get a full rest over the World Cup period as well. 7.5 million, given their opening nice run of fixtures as well, is definitely a differential and a nice player that I'm considering in my forward line alongside Haaland and alongside Jesus as well. And the final one, a cheap option, is Undav from Brighton. 5.5 million, again, could be a real budget price. He's looked good so far in pre-season. He didn't start the most recent game, but did come on and score. Again, if he's leading that line for Brighton, they have a good opening run of fixtures. Could be that sort of cheap option that I go with to help strengthen my bench, because I hate all of the 4.5 forwards that we have to pick from. Just investing 1 million into Undav could be the way that I really help strengthen my bench. So again, we've got 4 forwards, 5 midfielders, 5 defenders, and 4 goalkeepers that I'm really considering for my game week 1 team. Let me know if you're considering any of these guys for your team as well. If you haven't already, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are aiming for 25,000 subscribers by game week 1. It's a big ask, I know it is, but anything you can do to support would be massively appreciated. If you haven't already, join the league code above me. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll be back again very soon.